and welcome back to AEC Today Reports. In this episode, we're going to hear from one of our churches about what they're doing to keep their members informed about this crisis. And we're also going to hear from one of our frontline workers, an EMT, who is sharing information to keep us safe. And lastly, how many of you are suffering from burnout? We're going to hear how we can spot the signs and then counteract them when they come. So stay tuned for all of this in this episode. We'll see you after the break. Thanks for staying tuned into AEC Today Reports. We're back with two special guests, and they come to us from our Emmanuel Brinklow Church in Maryland. How are you guys doing today? We have Sheldon Kennedy and Ms. Denise Crary. How are you guys?
Good morning. Fine. Happy to be here.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Great to be here as well. Great to hear you as well.
And so we're really excited because, we're trying to chronicle some of the things our churches are doing to navigate this time and being creative about sharing information. And I know you all are doing just that with several video series. And one of them that particularly caught my attention was the COVID conversations. So can you share with us, how did that idea come about?
I can try to take a stab at that. So when we first, when the pandemic first hit, we were broadcasting from across the street at our church. And, there were a bunch of things that were coming at me, and I was trying to figure out, how do we navigate this? I had a conversation actually with Dr. Crary, who happens to be Denise Crary's husband. I went down to his office, and he and I did this video together. After that video, I kind of went through this thing of, man, how can I get this information out there all the time? So I had a conversation with my pastor, Dr. Anthony Medley, and he was like, yeah, man, this would be great. Why don't you do this thing like a conversation? So I said, okay. I said, COVID conversation. He was like, yeah, COVID conversations. So he, he basically just said, Sheldon, I trust you, do what you will. And I said, that's dangerous, but okay. And we went through a couple iterations of it. But what settled my mind one day, I said, I need somebody that can navigate the conversation really well, that can actually make this thing land. And the first person, there was nobody who came to my mind. Nobody else that came to my mind but my Aunt Denise. And I called her, I said, Aunt Denise, I need you to do this. She was like, no, why me? But she steadies the ship.
Absolutely.
She steadies the ship. She knows her stuff. And the way that she's able, her voice is very calming in the first place.
It is.
So that's how it came about. I knew I needed somebody that can make this thing work. And the information is great, but somebody that can help us navigate that information is even better.
All right, so that being said, Denise, when you got the call and he's asking you to be a part of this, of course, I know how it is. Sometimes our initial reaction is, no, choose somebody else. But as he said, you've been doing a great job leading and facilitating these discussions. And for those who may not have seen the series, can you share what COVID conversations, the subject matter has been about? What have you guys been discussing?
Thank you so much. We've had conversations about the medical side. The first show that I was involved in was involving two physicians, Dr. Milton Brown and Dr. Patrick Crary, and it was all medically related. Questions that people had that they didn't know where to get answers from, or just trying to navigate some of the things that you're hearing. Some of it was so, some of the information coming out was just so interesting, shall we call it?
Mm-hmm.
And so we were able to have our experts actually decipher that information and share what truth was. And that's important. And it was really important when we started talking about this, that the conversation we had with the physicians was, keep it real.
Mm.
Make it so that the average person can hear and understand what you're saying. We want the scientific information, but we want it relatable. And so Dr. Brown and Dr. Query are really, they're experts at being able to do that. And we ask our kids, our children, our adolescents, our teenagers to come and be a part of that conversation, because the young people that I was interacting with really didn't seem to understand or have a grasp
Yeah.
of the seriousness of what we were saying. And so it was important that they be able to talk to everyone. And so that was helpful. So we've talked about that. We've touched on mental health. Our last programming, we had a mental health professional, Dr. Marcella Cephas, joined the conversation. We've talked about disparities in our African American community.
Yeah.
I don't know if you recall, but when we first started talking about this, there was discussion that African Americans weren't getting
I
this,
remember that. Yeah.
or not being affected. And it was almost like a joke that, oh, well, we're not being affected. But the truth be told, yes, we are, and at an alarming rate. And so we've talked about that. We've also talked about preparedness. I work in a hospital, the largest hospital organization in the state of Maryland. And I have seen families come in and they aren't able to accompany their family members past the emergency room door.
Right.
It is heartbreaking. And so one of the things that we talked about, Dr. Prairie has a form that he created for people to prepare in the event that you have to go to the hospital and you can't be with your loved one. Those doctors and nurses are trying desperately to save their life. They don't have time to call you. So
Right.
he's created a form with all the medical information that they would need and ask. So we've done that. We've also talked about preparedness in case one of your family members has to be quarantined. What do you do? How do you prepare for that? So it's been really interesting.
Yeah, I tune in every time I see it. And the good thing about it, it's live. So viewers have the opportunity to ask questions as they're listening, which I think is a great. So have you guys gotten the positive feedback from the series you're hearing from any?
So one of the things that is interesting is it's very difficult to concentrate as we are doing the actual production. So as you know, everybody is in their own house. And my job as the producer and director is to make sure that I'm in lock and step with my moderator. So basically, I don't have it. She doesn't have an earbud. The only communication avenue we have is a phone. So we're delayed, but we're delayed by enough time that I'm able to get information to her during somebody talking. Now here goes the problem. The question was, how is this going? People are flooding her with messages at the same time that I'm trying to flood her with messages. Right. So, my messages to her may be, hey, I love the energy that you're portraying here. Keep going down this avenue. Ask this question as a follow-up. So, I'm navigating some of that. And somebody may be saying something to her, like, oh, how do you respond to this? What about this? What about this?
Yeah.
What about this? So the response has been really excellent. I got wind of something the other day that somebody said, hey, what you guys did for COVID Conversation Part 2, for Part 2, they wanted to utilize it in Jamaica. So we were called about that, and we just gave them access to our broadcast. So
awesome.
Those are some great things. How far reaching is it? We don't know, but I do know that weekly there's a lot of people jumping on, and we're getting a lot of text messages, phone calls. Hey, this is great. This is what we need. So that's why we keep doing it.
And this airs every Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m.?
3 p.m.
From your Facebook page.
Facebook, YouTube, and our church website.
Okay, great. And we're going to get all that information so people can watch the archives. They're available, right? And I know this past weekend you guys tackled finances. I know you had different panel to deal with that, but that was great. What do you have coming down the pike in terms of topics?
Thanks for asking, because we've got some very interesting things in the works. So one is moving COVID conversation to our youth. How are our youth really dealing with all of this? What's going on in their mind? We don't want to forget them. Our youth are experiencing, first of all, We know that every day they are experiencing a plethora of emotions, right? About different topics, about different things that are going on with their lives. And our youth have been affected by this thing just like every adult has. And so we want to have a conversation with our youth, just focused on our youth, hopefully with a youth moderator, hopefully with a youth moderator.
You hear that, Sheldon?
Yeah, listen, we're good. We're good.
Other things that we're looking at is having one of the conversations devoted completely to the mental health issues. As a mental health professional, I see this so much. I see what people are going through, and what is coming. Because what's happening now, people are just trying to navigate and stay in touch and on top of what's happening now. But I assure you, I guarantee you, what's coming down the pike and the postpartum after this, it's going to be a tsunami. And so we want prayer. We have lots of mental health professionals in the community that we're going to draw from in that regard. And there's another idea we have. God hasn't told Sheldon exactly how this is going to work, but one of the ideas is to do like a town hall where we are able to identify the topics that happened since we were last together and touch on them with our experts, but to really take questions from our audience. The questions come in, and I would say, and Sheldon, help me with this, but I would say we probably get to 1/10 of the questions, if that much, and that's probably very generous.
Yeah, that's generous.
And so we want to hear what people, we're here to answer people's questions, right? Yeah. We have lots of information we can share. We could do a whole program where there are no questions, right?
Right.
100.
But people have tons of questions that they want answered. And I think one of the reasons, Tasha, that this has been so successful is because they trust the professionals they're hearing from, right?
Absolutely.
They trust those persons. So that's why I think it's been so successful.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me because I'm sure initially when you all started this, it was designed for your church family. And now it's become something where people from all over, as you said, people even from Jamaica are reaching out to say, this is information we all need to know. I think that's the beauty of it. Even though, you're trying to tend to the needs of your own church, you're also at the same time reaching out to so many. And I know even from the conference level, we're watching and we're using the same professionals that you are to kind of help guide us through all of this, because we trust where they're coming from. We trust their expertise. We trust that they have our best interests at heart. So the series has been great. Now, remind us again, Sheldon, where people can go to watch the episodes. Give us the YouTube and Facebook name and all of that.
Sure. Everything Brinklow SDA. You go to brinklowsda.org. It is on our website. You can watch our online archives. If you go to Facebook, it's Brinklow SDA. If you go to YouTube, Brinklow SDA. If you go to Instagram, Brinklow SDA. If you go to Twitter, Brinklow SDA. Everything Brinklow
SDA. Got it. This is wonderful. We just want to applaud you guys for being proactive and educating. As you said, there's so much information out there. It's great to have a reliable source within our own conference that we can rely on. So thank you guys for what you're doing. Keep up the good work. We're watching, we're following, we're listening. So thank you for all you're doing.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. All right. And we'll be right back after this quick break. We understand that during this time, as much as we want to provide hope and encouragement for all of you, some of you are experiencing loss, or you have individuals who have been impacted by this virus and are currently in pain or discomfort. We want to pray for those individuals. So we ask that you go to our website, hit the prayer tab, and give us the opportunity to pray for and with you. We believe that God is still in the healing business and He will work miracles on your behalf. So please let us pray with you. Thank you for staying tuned to AEC Today Reports. We have with us a very special guest. All of my guests are special. I always say that. Dr. Kevin McNaught, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Safe and well. Thanks be to God.
Now, for those who do not know you, please share with us your background, what you do currently professionally, and we'll go from there.
Sure, of course. So I am a member of the Community Seventh-day Adventist Church in Englewood. I've been there for a number of years with my family, my wife, and 3 children. And I've been so blessed being the health ministries director for a number of years, many more than I can remember. I have a wonderful team. And of course, in the last few weeks when the pandemic started, we came together and we started to pull resources and we started to see how we can get the information out there to help protect our members. And of course, with my background, I started off as a research scientist. I do a lot of work in neurological disorders, but more recently, I became an EMT. And being out there on the front lines, I've had the opportunity to see what really is going on with COVID-19. And so myself and the team, as we considered how to advise our membership in the community, I thought I would share some of my experiences on the front lines and seeing what's going on. And so that is why we developed some videos at Community Church, and that's why we started to put things out there so that people are more and better informed.
And they're great videos. I was so happy when your wife, who's the communication director, shared those with me. And for those who don't know, they're on our website, on our COVID-19 page. But we're actually going to have Dr. McNaught share some of those with us in this episode. And one of the major things, we're hearing now that you're not really allowed to go out in public without wearing a mask. And we're hearing different things about the different types of masks. I even heard today that those homemade masks that we're making really aren't doing us much good. However, it's better than nothing. We know that's the case. Yet we do still need some direction on even how we remove them. Particularly when we have our children who are wearing them and they come home, and I think in their minds they're just going to keep putting it on back and forth. So let me stop talking and share with us some mask safety that we can implement on a daily basis.
Well, so the first, and I think the most important thing to remember is that a mask will not provide 100% protection. It doesn't matter how well made it is. It doesn't matter what the scientific specifications are. You still have to consider a mask as a part of a broader system of protecting yourself from exposure to coronavirus. So that's the first and foremost thing. The second thing, of course, is it doesn't matter how good the mask is. If it's not worn as it should be worn, then you will get the benefit that you would otherwise get from wearing a mask or any other part of the PPE protection system for that matter. There are, of course, a number of different types of masks. The one that everybody is talking about is the N95 mask, which really is the one that's going to provide you most protection, but that, of course, is not available to the public in any great numbers because the hospitals and medical centers and first responders, they do have a shortage. And so it's important that they have as many of those masks as they can get so that as they get on the front line, as they come in contact with patients, they have the best way of protecting themselves. But nevertheless, if you can get access to an N95 mask, then it's a wonderful form of protection for you. The other kind of mask, of course, is the regular surgical mask that you will see most people wearing now. The important thing to note there is that that will provide you some degree of protection, but it is not as good as an N95 mask, and it certainly will not protect you as much as you would want. So you still have to take far more precautions with the surgical mask as you would with an N95 mask. Then people are making some very fancy, creative masks that are made out of cloth, and you just have to walk around or drive around and you will see them. They're very creative, and unfortunately, they will provide even less protection compared to the N95 or even surgical masks. But nevertheless, they do have a role to play, and they will and can protect you, again, if they're worn in the appropriate manner. Yes, so any kind of mask is better than nothing.
Absolutely. And it's funny, you talk about the different type of masks we're seeing out there. People are getting their school logos. I mean, it's like the new accessory now for people. And I know, I'm not sure, do you have a mask with you?
Yes, I do. So I have So I have the N95 mask,
Oh, you have one of those. Okay, because we would like to see what those.
one of the surgical masks, and you would have seen these on the video.
Okay, great. Now, are you able to demonstrate for us right now?
Sure. So why don't I begin with the surgical mask, which is the one that most people would get access to. In fact, there was a tremendous shortage of these, but now we're seeing these more and more in a number of stores. So you might be able to get access to these.
And those are disposable.
All right, so they should be disposable, but they're not being used in a disposable way. And that again is unfortunate, because once they're used and if they get exposed to pathogens, then it's really a good idea to throw them away and get yourself a fresh mask. But because of the shortage, people are having to reuse.
Yeah, we did hear about that.
Which is not ideal. Nevertheless, so this is the mask. The thing to remember again is to make sure that it's the right way up and it's not upside down. There is a metal strip at the top of the mask, and that's really what you should be paying attention to as a reference point. So with that metal strip at the top, and with, as I referred to in video, the blinds should be facing down. Again, there's a reason why they face down. Once you have the mask like this, you simply grab the loops and you place it over your face like this, and you place the loops over your ears. And then you want to pull the bottom underneath your chin, and with the top, you should make sure that you form the metal strip around your nose so that you get a nice seal. Now, I skipped a very important part of this simply for the time constraint that we have, which is before you handle your mask, you got to make sure that your hands are clean.
Okay, I was going to ask about that, how important that is. Okay.
That's so important because, again, especially if you're in the field, if you're in the hospital, you're on the street, you want to put on your mask. If your hands are not clean, if your hands are contaminated and you try to do this, then you're going to contaminate your face. And everybody knows that the virus loves access to you through your nostrils and through your mouth. So it really is important that you clean your hands before you pick up your mask, whether it's using Purell or washing with soap and water, or putting on a pair of gloves like the one set that I have here before you hand your mask. So that is super, super important. Now, the other thing that I didn't do, again, in the interest of time, and this is on the video, is taking it off, okay? So once you take it off, again, you take it from the loop and you put it away from your face.
Right, you're avoiding that.
Handle the front, because again, you're gonna assume that it's contaminated and you don't want to contaminate your hands. So you put it away from the loops, okay? So that's really how you do a surgical mask.
Okay. Now, I know, I mean, I have a cloth mask right now. And, I know that when I come home, I am putting it in the wash. Like, I'm not touching it. I'm not, dealing. But I often wonder, because for me, I don't know, things covering my mouth, like I was struggling in the grocery store. I'm like, I feel like I can't breathe. And so as soon as I got outside, I just loosened one side. Is it more appropriate for us to put the mask on before we leave the house? Because I see people riding in their cars with it, and I'm wondering, is that necessary? But then I wonder if maybe that's more sanitary because you're opening the car handle, you're touching so many things before you eventually touch the mask. I don't, is there a recommendation there?
Yes, so I would recommend that we put on our mask before we leave the house. And that's for a number of reasons. First, of course, is as we leave the house, you may encounter someone right outside your door who has the virus, and so you would be potentially exposed. So it makes sense to put it on before you leave. And the second reason, of course, is when you're at home, you have a much better chance of getting your hands clean and sanitized before you handle your mask and touch your face. It will be a little bit more difficult to do that out in the field. And so the recommendation is, yes, you should try to put it on before you leave your house.
Okay, great. Now, I saw you hold up the gloves, and I've heard a lot of different things about gloves as this thing has transpired, because at first it was like, everybody put on your gloves. And, you go to the grocery store and you see people pick up things with gloves. And, in your mind, you're thinking, this just doesn't seem right. And I've even seen some stores who put up a sign that's saying, do not wear gloves in here. So can you share with us, are gloves necessary, in what cases they're necessary, how we should remove them, etc.?
So I would say that they're not absolutely necessary, but they will provide some degree of protection. But again, it depends very much on how you use them. The thing to remember is even though you have gloves on your hands, it's still important that you keep your hands sanitary, because the virus does not respect gloves. So you will still get the virus on your gloves, on your fingers, and so you can easily transfer from place to place. And so it's important that you still clean your hands with or without gloves. The important thing to remember as far as gloves are concerned really it's not about how you put them on, but it's about how you take them off. Because again, wearing your gloves, you will assume that you might be exposed to the virus. And so by taking them off, you really want to be careful that you don't transfer viral particles from your gloves onto your skin and then into your face and into your nose. So taking them off is crucially important.
Okay. And are you able to, I know in terms of taking them off, typically, the goal is not to touch the outside, just like the mask. The goal is to just avoid and even fold it into the other. And it's like process.
Okay.
But it's so important in terms of not spreading it. Even if you're protecting yourself, you still could possibly spread it to other places if you don't dispose of them properly.
Absolutely. So, and I can demonstrate that as well.
Okay.
So I'm going to simply put them on very, very quickly. So most people are just fine with putting on the glove. There really is nothing technical to getting them on. You just got to be careful that you don't rip them. So again, assuming that your hands are contaminated, taking them off means that you should not be touching your skin, right? So to do that, so you want to grab somewhere in the middle of your palm and simply pull them off, okay? And you'll do that without touching your skin. And then you'll place them in the palm of the other hand. And you just crunch them like that. And then you take your clean finger and you place underneath the other glove and you pull that off to make a little bag.
And then you just throw it on the ground.
And then you don't do that. And if you drive around, you will see that there's a lot of gloves being thrown on the street, on the sidewalks. That really is unsanitary. And it looks awful and it's littering. You just should find a place that you can throw them away in a trash can. If you can place it in another bag, you can take it home and you put it in your own trash can and you throw it away as you would normally throw away any kind of trash.
Great. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people complaining about seeing, people they're going through all these precautions and then they're just throwing them on the ground. It's like, do we get the point of what it is we're trying to do here? Okay, so great. These are great demonstrations. Now, one of the videos that I wanted you to share too is, we're hearing how the breathing pattern is so very important in terms of one, realizing whether there's something irregular going on. And then once you've identified it, determining, is this getting worse or is this getting better? So can you share with us some of the tips about monitoring our breathing?
Sure. So the breathing, of course, is one of the important vital signs. And unfortunately, in people with COVID-19, it is impacted in a significant way. So this is something that is usually done in the hospital setting, but of course, for a lot of reasons, many people with COVID symptoms are not able to stay in the hospital so that they can get the care that they would need in a hospital setting. So they're left at home having to take care of themselves, having to look after themselves in terms of monitoring their disease. Breathing it can be complicated, but it can also be relatively straightforward and simple to monitor. A lot of us think about breathing in terms of how many breaths we take. That is important. But there's another factor which is perhaps even more important, that is determining how much oxygen you're taking in with each breath. Normally, with a healthy person, you need to have perhaps 95 to 100% oxygen saturation in your blood. The way to determine that is to use a device. It's called a pulse oximeter, and it's relatively easy to use. It's inexpensive, and it can be had without a prescription. So what patients with COVID-19 can do is to use one of those devices to help monitor how they're doing with respect to their breathing. I have one here. I can again demonstrate.
Sure, please.
So as I mentioned on the video, the thing to do with a pulse oximeter, first foremost thing is to make sure that your device is clean, especially if it's being used by someone else. Then you turn it on. And once you turn it on, it takes about a second for the device to come on. The way to make it work is that you open the device by pinching here, and you might be able to see a red light in the device. Now, that is a light that goes through your finger once it's inserted, and that is what measures the amount of oxygen that is in your blood. So
Okay.
Once you put your finger in, you should see a reading come up on the device, and it takes a little while to come up. The one that is crucial in terms of looking at your oxygen level is the number that's flashing at the top. This one says 100. That is telling me that my oxygen levels in my blood is 100% saturated, which is great because you want this to be between 95 and 100%. But if you have COVID or in fact other kinds of respiratory illnesses, then the amount of oxygen that you're taking through your lung will decrease. The challenge that patients with COVID-19 faces is that the oxygen levels will fall below the 95% range that is required. Once that happens, then you can begin to face a variety of additional health problems. And something that is peculiar about COVID, which is that when oxygen levels fall below what is normal, sometimes they don't even know that. They don't even realize.
Right.
Because they still feel like their breathing is adequate. They still feel relatively okay, meaning that they're not exerting themselves to taking additional breath. And that is a particular danger because when oxygen levels fall, that can lead to a variety of additional health problems. And sometimes they can come on insidiously without you realizing, and then it becomes relatively late and then you end up in an emergency situation. So this device is helpful so that you can monitor on a regular basis what is going on. Once you fall below 95, you get into the 94, 90% range. Then in some patients that may be still acceptable and may be okay because there may be some existing health issues that are under control and managed that causes your oxygen levels to be normally below 95%. But for most people, if it falls below 90%, so you're now into the 80% range, that is not ideal. And that is a reason to be very, very concerned. And my recommendation to patients with COVID-19 is that if your oxygen levels fall below 90%, you really should reach out to the emergency services and have them come to do an assessment and to see what is going on. It's also important that, again, once you fall below the 95% normal threshold, you reach out to your care provider and have a conversation about what is going on so that they can advise you on what steps to take, because this could be very, very serious. And for people who have COVID, they already have a variety of health deficits. About problems going on, you really want to mitigate and prevent any further developing issues. So this has to be monitored, and you really need to report into your care provider so that they know what's going on.
Now, where would someone get this machine?
So these devices are normally found in your pharmacy, your local medical supplies, certainly online. Sometimes your care provider might be able to loan you one or give you one. Okay. But I will tell you that in this situation as we are, it's going to be very difficult to find, or easily to find a pulse oximeter. But if you try hard enough, you might be able to find one. If you're not able to get one online or from your local pharmacy, by all means, person should reach out to their doctor, the hospital that is providing care, and to ask them if they're able to loan them one of those devices to use at home.
Awesome. This is great information. I didn't even know about monitoring something like this, and I'm sure many others do not. And also those who are serving as caregivers to family members who are, I think this will give them some peace of mind in terms of kind of gauging what's going on with their loved one and if they need to reach out to a doctor. So this is great information. Now, on a personal note, you said you're working as an EMT. I mean, how is this impacting what you do on a daily basis?
Sure. So I can tell you up to, I would say before February, a lot of the calls that would come in to my team, and I guess for EMTs in general, would be the usual things: heart attacks, unconsciousness, sometimes trauma from car accidents, sometimes accidents happen in the home. So those were the kind of things that we were responding to on a regular basis. Now it is very different. Most of the calls that come into emergency medical services are either for COVID-19 or suspected COVID-19. And even when they're not for COVID, one has to be prepared.
Exactly.
So when you get out, you may very well find that the person that you're attending to, whatever the call may be, have COVID symptoms. And we see a lot of that. In some cases, people don't even know that they have COVID symptoms. And so when we get there, we have to take every precaution that we need to take so that we are protected, and so that the public is protected, and so that families are informed as to what it is that their loved ones may be experiencing. One of the other things that I think is particularly difficult at this time for families, and certainly for first responders, a lot of the times when we go out and we encounter someone who has COVID or suspected COVID, and we have to treat in the field, or we have to transport to the hospital, family members are not allowed to attend.
Right.
That creates a tremendous emotional burden on families and on care providers, because they have to become not only the care provider, but also the comforter and the person who has to spend time with patients to do the things that family members normally do in terms of providing hope, providing support, being there, to pray and to provide that essential role that family and friends normally provide to one another. So it is a very difficult time for families and for people providing care, first responders and people in the hospital settings.
Yeah, and we just want to take the time to thank you and your team and all the other teams like yours who are doing that. I couldn't imagine what it's like to have to face that on a daily basis and have to separate families from their loved ones because it's in their best interest for their health. So we applaud what you all are doing, and we know it's not easy, and I'm sure it takes its toll from time to time. So thank you, not just for what you're doing, but even when you're going a step further and you're educating others so that we can be safe and so that we can follow proper procedures. So we thank you for that as well. And if you guys didn't hear me mention it earlier, all of Dr. McNaught's videos are on our website under our COVID-19 resource page. You can go and view those and share them with individuals so that they understand the process. Any closing words you'd like to say to us, Dr. McNaught, before we go?
Well, sure. Yes, I think it's important that we remember that despite what we're going through, and it is a very difficult time, not only for families, but also for those who are those in the hospitals, those who are on ambulances, the first responders dealing with it. It's extremely difficult. And I think now more than ever, we need to lift up God, because as much as we're doing, as much as we're trying to provide the human need, we know that God is in control. And things look difficult, and things are difficult, but God tells us that if we lift him up, he's going to lift us up. So I go out and I ask God to go ahead of me and prepare a safe path, not only for myself, but for my colleagues, for first responders, for doctors, for nurses across the country and across the world. Because now more than ever, we need to have God in our life, and we need to ask God for guidance and protection.
Amen. Absolutely. Thank you for that. That's wonderful. And thank you for joining us today. We pray you and your family stay safe during this crisis. All right, and we thank you for staying tuned to AEC Today Reports. We'll take a brief break and be right back. Back with another special guest, and this is Dr. Keslin Stennis. How are you doing, Dr. Stennis?
I'm well. Good to be here. How are you?
Doing well as well.
Good.
So tell us a little bit about your background, what you do, and kind of where you're coming from in terms of your scope of experience.
Wow. Who am I? I'm Keslin Braid Stennis. I have known you a long time, and it's a pleasure to talk to you in this way. I am the chair of the social work department at Coppin State University, which is in Baltimore, Maryland. I have had the privilege of serving as a Protestant chaplain at Georgetown University and working at a number of universities, including Oakwood College back then.
That's right.
In the social work department, and I got started learning about and practicing therapy back then, and it has been a wonderful ride up to this point. And so I'm very thankful for all of my experiences and for this opportunity to share what little wisdom I may have with your audience.
Oh yes, you have lots and lots of wisdom.
Oh, thank you.
And I would like to say that Dr. Stennis was able to participate in a webinar geared towards our pastors about secondary stress. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. A lot of great information, I think, that's applicable to anyone, even those who are not in the ministry field. But the first thing I wanted to start off talking about is, a lot of people have been in their homes 7 weeks now.
Ooh, has it been that long?
Yeah, I think we're going into 8 now. I've lost track. I know it's close to 2 months.
Wow.
And, parents are dealing with, their children being home and making sure they stay on target with their schoolwork, as well as themselves trying to work from home and manage Zoom calls. And even though we're in our homes, you would think, oh, that provides a sense of relief. Actually, it can become very overwhelming for a lot of people. And they experience something, they don't necessarily know it's burnout, I'm assuming, but they may experience something called burnout. So can you share with us how we can know when we've reached that point where we might be, burning out and need to do something about it?
Yeah. So great question. I think in life, in terms of kind of 4 categories: biological, psychological, sociological, and spiritual. And I think there are signs in all 4 of those areas. Biologically, when you are at burnout, you can be tired. Yesterday, my eye was twitching. My body has just been tired. Your body tells you when it has gotten to its point. Some people have headaches, stress headaches. You feel tension in the temple areas on the back of the neck. I found myself, again, yesterday in the computer with my shoulders high. My muscles are tight, and I had to constantly take deep breaths and lower my shoulders. Your body tells you biologically when it's time. Acne, some significant stress can lead to hair loss. There are lots and lots of signs. Some people develop dizziness when they are stressed. So biologically, your body tells you maybe not sleeping enough because there's anxiety, or sleeping too much. So those are some biological signs. Psychological, and I'm right now, I'm probably feeling many of them like everybody else is, right? Psychologically, sometimes you find yourself lethargic, not able to move mentally, depressed or anxious. You may find yourself snappy for no reason. Your response was very sharp and curt. And that may not be your normal character, but when you're stressed and you're at that breaking point, there are some other sides of us that come out, and that can be it. Difficulty focusing on task completion. You'll start something and you'll put it down, and then you forget what you started and you never get back to it. And the clothes pile up and pile up and pile up, or your to-do list gets longer and nothing is checked off. being hyper emotional, crying out of like, what happened?
No,
Why
yeah.
am I crying over this little thing? And difficulty making decisions. So those are some of the psychological telltale signs of burnout. Then there's the sociological signs. So, and this is really hard for people during this COVID-19 kind of sequester period, right?
Yeah.
You are not just physically distant and socially and physically, you're not just physically distancing from people, you are socially distancing from people, literally not reaching out, not returning phone calls. You don't have the strength, or you may just be pulling away because it's the only peace of mind that you get. You may take those longer showers than normal because the kids are yelling and you just need a break. Like, so sociologically, you become even more isolated and insulated. Sociology deals with your relevance with a group of people. Some of the signs of burnout, stress, fatigue, abuse. You begin to abuse those who are closest to you, not just snapping, and that can be abusive too, but it may be physically abusive. And you begin to abuse yourselves, whether it's self-medicating or whether it's drinking or giving into those propensities for certain addictions. And so, you know, sociologically, there are some warning signs as well. And then spiritually, I don't know about anybody else, but when I am at burnout, while I know that God is with me, God feels so distant from me. I can't seem to connect to God. It just feels very lonely and overwhelming. And even though God is the answer, sometimes it feels like you can't quite get to God, and you feel off-centered. You may not feel like you can tap into your purpose in life and those things that give you fulfillment. So when I think about burnout and stress and trauma and all of the other components that are related, I think in terms of biological factors, psychological warning signs, sociological warning signs, and those spiritual warning signs. And the more stressed we get, the closer we get to burnout, sometimes the more evidence in all four of those areas shows, and the rates increase.
So true, so true. And I'm sure as we are all listening to this list, some of us are admitting that we're checking off more boxes than we realized.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that being said, what do we do? You know, how do we get out of this rut and you know, counteract this burnout or catch it before it gets us too far?
Stop. I am trying to make it a personal habit to say, take off the cap, take off the cape. I'm not Superwoman. I'm not Wonder Woman. I'm not Superman. Take off the cap. Take off the cape. It's okay. Because in reality, God's got it. And it's okay. Right now, I usually wash clothes every week. I have a load of clothes that's sky high. It's okay. I'm at home.
People have clothes to wear in the house. Nobody's walking around naked.
Right. It's okay. I have to take the cape off and allow myself to be human. And it's in that place, I believe, where God can minister to me.
Absolutely.
Stop. And let God speak in those quiet moments. Our brains are so conditioned to keep going and going and going that sometimes it gets difficult. So that would be my number one, right? As we go through, we are creatures of habit. And those of us who get overwhelmed because we do too much continue that habit. We have to learn how to set limitations. And we have to know that it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to say no. I'm in the habit now of telling my children, I'm only one person. Mommy, can I have this? And I want that. And I don't want, I'm only one person. So you'll have to wait. You'll have to wait. Setting limits, recognizing our humanity and setting limits. I have to say that it's okay for us to get help.
Yes, say
It's
that.
okay for us to build a community of friends, family, and professionals who can support us in this journey so that we don't burn out. Um, Sometimes we Christian folk
Well,
don't give ourselves the the right to have feelings.
hmm,
We think that feelings and faith counter one another.
yeah.
But Jesus had feelings. The disciples had feelings. The woman at the well had feelings. And it is a gift from God to recognize our feelings. That doesn't mean we always have to act on them, but we do have to recognize them. And so when I am at the place of burnout, I literally say to my family, listen, mommy needs to take a nap because I feel like I'm not going to be my best self. And you're
Yes.
not going to like me in about 5 minutes. So I'm going to go upstairs, take a breath. I may take a nap. I'll be back. But mommy, I recognize that I've done as much in this moment as I can do, and I need a break.
Yeah.
I have to recognize, and it's okay.
I've learned that, Lynn. I've learned to be able to be honest with my children and say, mommy needs some time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done it enough times now where when I say it, they understand, they get it. They're like, okay, let's let mom go to her room right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think if we just can get okay with being able to do that,
Yeah.
people in our house will fall in line. They get it as well. And so we just gotta, like you said, understand that we can take the cape off. We can take the mom cape off for a
Take it
moment
off.
and just be Tasha, who needs
Yep.
some space. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And that's setting a great example for our children because they need to learn that it's okay. My daughter, one of my youngest of the crew, the 10-year-old, not the youngest, but the 10-year-old is quick to say, mommy, I don't feel like talking right now. Can I go to my room for just, and I'll come back. I need to get myself together.
I love that.
Absolutely. Because if you don't, we might have some problems. So I need you to go to your room, get
Smart.
your emotions back, calm yourself down, practice whatever, and then come back. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's setting a great example for them to learn how to master their feelings. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
These are some great tips. And sometimes we just need to hear someone remind us of these things. Some of the things we know,
Yes.
but it's just having someone give us permission to, or give us the comfort in knowing it's okay for us to do these things makes a big difference. And so
Yep.
thank you. Thank you. For that.
Absolutely.
Now, I mentioned earlier how you were part of a webinar for our pastors about secondary stress. And one of the topics that came up was what's it? Compassion fatigue. People who are so, and it doesn't just apply to pastors. I'm sure there are other roles where this is. Explain to people what compassion fatigue is.
In simple terms, compassion fatigue is when you have given so much that you are too tired to give more and you become apathetic about your role as a provider or as a supporter or as a professional giver. You become apathetic. You can't give anymore. You're at the wall. Compassion, you have no more, you have it, but you have to, you're holding on to the bit of compassion that you have for self-preservation, which looks like apathy to other people. Compassion fatigue. Yeah,
Wow.
it's real. And I really pray, I can say that on this Christian station, right? I really pray for people who are service providers now because they are stressed to the max, and yet they are still required to give. It's wow.
Yeah, and you heard about the physician recently who committed suicide, and her father was speaking of how much she had given and how much it was really wearing on her, and that's disheartening to think that she was probably experiencing compassion fatigue, where she probably wanted to give and just didn't feel like she had anything left, and the guilt of that,
and still being required to come to work.
Right.
Can you imagine the guilt? If I don't go to work, someone's going to die, but I don't have it within me to do my job. to the level of excellence that I should. Can you imagine the guilt?
Yeah.
The weight that wow.
Yeah. It made me think, thinking about those who are in those positions. How can we, other people, help people or sense or be more sensitive to others who are in those types of positions? What can we do to help them take some of that load off?
I would say that we have to give permission to people to be human. And how do we do that?
Yeah.
We literally say, so how are you?
Mm.
And most of the time people say, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord, I'm great. Okay. And then you say, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So how are you?
Yeah.
How are you really? And you may have to ask 3 times, but that's letting people know that you really care about who they are and not just about what they do. And you're giving them permission. It's safe to answer the question.
Wow.
Safe to take off the Christian, what we think is the Christian mask, and just be human. So just ask. And then sometimes people should have boundaries, but sometimes people erect boundaries in ways that we don't understand, and we don't respect them. We cross over those boundaries. If someone says, I don't answer my phone after 10,
right,
and something burning comes to mind and we call, and then we get upset when they don't answer the phone. Well, no, they have boundaries, and we have not respected their boundaries.
right. Yeah.
So we can check in and ask them how they're doing, and we can respect their boundaries.
Very important.
Thirdly, I would say that we help others by helping ourselves. When we are in a good place, then we can be better able to support others and vice versa. So we can help others by helping ourselves. And for some people, that is, they don't perceive that as Christian, but it's just that we recognize we're not God. We're human, and we're trying to meet our needs so we can be a better Christian in our service, whatever service that is. So I think those are 3 things that we can do.
Yeah. Those are great, very practical. And sometimes it just takes as a matter of just stopping and thinking and being intentional. And I think the steps help us to do that. This has been great. I feel like, I feel free. I feel a weight lifted off. I feel like
glad. I'm glad.
Yes, I can, because I have to admit, working from home has created a new dynamic for me. I mean, I always felt like I kind of had a strong work ethic, but now it's like you're home and you feel this need to overcompensate for being home. Yes. So you find yourself working from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed.
Yes.
It's supposed to be this way. It's not
yes.
This way. So I'm going to create some boundaries for myself.
You have to. My dean says, please don't work all night. Please turn your computer off. Mm-hmm. Last night I was working and my daughter came in the room and she said, Mommy, you're still on your computer? You're still on? And I'm like, she's right. Poor boundaries, So take your cape off.
Yeah. Take the cape off.
Take the cape off.
Great final thoughts. We thank you, Dr. Stennis. You've shared so much great information that I think we all can benefit from, and we appreciate it. And I mentioned the webinar that Dr. Stennis did with a few other individuals. That can be found on our website, on our ministerial page, so you can check that out. But thanks so much, and we hope you get some rest.
Thank you. I will. Tonight will be a good sleep night. It's raining outside. I'll rest well.
Oh, awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you guys for joining in with us. We'll have a brief break and we'll be back. All right, guys, this wraps up this episode of AEC Today Reports. We thank you for staying by. We thank all of our guests who had so much information to share to keep us sane, to keep us healthy during this crisis. We'll see you next time. After all, the more you watch, the more you know.